Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back, everybody. We are talking relationships today, personal relationships, not business ones, and the dynamics of them, what you're willing to tolerate, what you're willing not to tolerate, the guidelines, the borders, all of that. We're going to dig into that. And she is a life coach that helps people with this all the time. Purposeful Pathways Lifecoaching.com. Allison Cowan is back with us. Welcome, Allison. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, Steve. It's always good to see you and be here. I'm always excited to see how it's gonna go. So
we just wing it. We just basically wing it.
I hope people enjoy just the naturalness.
You know, it's relatable. We're all social creatures. We crave social interaction. And with that comes relationships. And if you take a second to kind of get out of yourself and look back over the years of your very close relationships, and I'm talking, marriage, very, very close, and just kind of look at it in a snapshot, it's kind of interesting. I look back and it's, why did I do that? Why did I accept that? How did that go that way? Well, there were signs and I saw them, but I didn't see them. And I had this conversation last night with a couple of guys, exactly what we're talking about. And the one thing I brought up, and they agreed, tell me if you agree. In the beginning of a relationship, the person is telling you everything about them. They're sharing clues with you. They're sharing everything. A lot of times we don't see it or we choose to ignore it because when you first meet, it's that happy, joyous feeling. And it's like, I don't know, you just push that. Nah, they just said something that was, I'm not going to worry about that. Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
And in the beginning of relationships, especially, people are going to just present the positive side.
Mm-hmm.
And there may be some little negative things or something that is what I call a red flag. And, maybe that really didn't mean anything. So it's easy to ignore the red flags and go with that newness, because that newness is, it's thrilling. Your dopamine levels are going through the roof. And you almost don't want to see the red flags because you're so caught up.
Yep.
All of that new.
Without a doubt. And when I think back, I say to myself, you knew it, but you didn't act on it because it was new and exciting. Example, in a relationship at one point where the other person revealed they were married. I was married. I was done though. I was, going through a divorce. It was all, this is way back, but it was all on its way out, papers, everything. The other person didn't even announce to their spouse and shared with me, I think the second day we met, that she had cheated on him. Mm-hmm. She had cheated on him with a friend. And when I look back, I was like, I was the second cheat, if you look at it that way, in her life. Come to find out years later, what was she? A cheater. Should have saw the signs, should have accepted it, but like you just said, you get caught up in the moment and you're like, maybe you're younger and you're like, whatever, it's all right. And I will, I'll be honest here. The person she told me that she cheated with was her best friend who was a woman. So I was like, oh, cool. All right. Looking back, bad. That was a bad, I should have seen the signs and along the way.
Or ask the questions. What prompted you to cheat in the first place? So if somebody's in an unhappy marriage and they make that, and I know this has come up for us quite a bit, but what was the impetus for that? And sometimes it doesn't mean that it's going to become a continual pattern. It just may mean that there was something so wrong in the relationship that it was an escape. Or are they looking for somebody to rescue them from the relationship that they're in? And, so in the beginning, if you really understood and like talked it through, figured it out, noticed the red flags, it may be that if you became involved with somebody who eventually wasn't married, but had cheated in the past, it may be perfectly fine, because it doesn't mean that it's going to always happen. There may have been, what was it?
And I figured it out, and I'm pretty sure I have it. Back then, I didn't have the confidence, and I was more vulnerable at that time. Whereby now, I'd look at that and be like, yeah, that's not happening. That's a bad idea. And
Yeah.
on the flip side, you ask why? Why do people cheat? Why? Many different reasons. A lot of times, in my view, talking to people, everything, unresolved issues from your past. You haven't healed from certain things potentially, and then that's just one theory I have. And in this situation, that is definitely part of it. That is, and that's from childhood, father issues, all of that. Crystal clear for me, almost like textbook. And I've talked to therapists about that. Friends who are therapists.
And it even can be that the relationship that the person is in is something they no longer want to tolerate because of whatever is going on. And rather than making different choices, they choose the escape route.
Yep. And it's, we can understand certain things, but doesn't.
Yeah. And I don't judge.
I don't judge. I just try to understand.
Yeah.
I like to.
Yeah.
I'm analytical, so I try to put the pieces together.
Yeah.
It's like, and then so it makes sense. Like, oh, that makes sense. Okay, all right, yeah, got it, figured it out. Okay.
We can talk to 25 different people who have, experienced this and come up with 25 different reasons why it's happening. And yes, in some cases, maybe it's just a pattern that they've gotten into, or maybe there's just tons and tons of things. But there are also other things that people like. What other things besides that? And I know that one is like near and dear to your heart. That topic with tolerating. But what about other things? Work schedules.
Sure.
I mean, we can go on. Family.
Sure. It's a two-way street. A relationship it's not like one person is the bad person. It works both ways, but sometimes one person is a little bit more this than this in terms of, I don't want to say blame, but of what's going on. But it's definitely, there's a balance, going on there. Instant feedback, steve@gmail.com. I guess we're resonating. We have Kelsey checking in from Ann Arbor, Michigan, and she says, thank you for your talk today. Do you feel the phrase, once a cheater, always a cheater, is true?
That's funny because, Steve, you've brought that up many times.
Right? I don't remember that until you said that.
Oh, I think I can probably, if we go back and tally it up, it's got to be at least 10, 15 times.
No way.
I don't believe so.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't believe so.
maybe we had this debate before, but you never say never. You know, that's my phrase, never say never. However, I think more prone to if having done in the past. And that's on me. That's talking to friends, that's, reading, that's, just looking. So again, then definitely not 100% or at all, but more prone to.
And if there are so many other areas within the relationship, you think about, like we talked, there's finances, there's family,
Mm-hmm.
there's work schedules, there's even social, there's values.
Mm-hmm.
And if these things aren't talked about, then could be easy for somebody to they want their, and if their needs are not being met because they're not able to communicate with each other, they may want to have their needs met.
You just said it, and I was thinking of it because we haven't hit it yet. The C word, communication. So when the communication starts breaking down, that's where things start breaking up, I guess, if you want to look at it that way.
And it's like, okay, and if we're not talking about certain things, and say, for example, everybody's needs are different. Some people have more needs to be alone or more alone time. Some people may need more time together. And if they're not talked about and they're not honored, then it could be very easy to find those needs in other places. And, so I believe that through coaching, going through all of these things, and what does each person value, and what do they want to take out of each of these topics, you're more likely to be able to come together and meet each other's needs.
But when the communication is not there or has gone away, because of course it was there in the beginning, we assume. If it wasn't, why'd you get into that relationship? And usually the communication is better in the beginning. At least each is sharing what they want, what their needs are, what their goals are for the relationship. We all have goals, no matter what it is. But when that starts breaking down, then the pieces start crumbling. The foundation, now there's a crack. There's another one, and one person's out. No, I don't want to talk about it again. I don't want to do that, and walk away. And it's like, might feel good for the moment, but it's just, that's the beginning.
In the beginning, we will often, like I said, just we want to show our positive selves, and and we all have, there's nothing good or bad about anybody, but understanding where the person is coming from, and are we able to compromise? Are we able to, so for example, it may be really important for somebody to cuddle or snuggle.
I'm a serial snuggler, by the way.
So a huge need. Yeah. And the partner is like really not into it, and decides, well, you know what, you get not right now, maybe tomorrow. And or if they're just placating you, not like playing full in because they really love you, then
yeah, you know what I call that?
There's a need.
Yeah,
There's a
I,
need
I, I
now.
call that just maintenance. Yeah. And you can add another word after that, maintenance X or, whatever. It's
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
it's that, but yeah. But then that, comes down to what we started talking about in the beginning. What will you tolerate and what won't you tolerate? And, I guess it's putting up the borders, I'm not going to do that. And there were things in other relationships that I'm mindful of that I put up with. And it's a life journey. So I will always say certain things that I put up with in relationships. I'll never do that again. And I know what they are. And just what you said, that's one of them. Ain't never going to do that again. And I'm not. It's just
And
the way it is.
setting boundaries is one of the healthiest things that can happen in a
Mhm.
relationship.
Yeah.
And the person who called, what was her name was,
Just now,
yeah,
Kelsey.
Kelsey. Yeah, so Kelsey, reach out to me. I'd love to talk with you. And just always remember that, there's that free 1 hour
Mhm.
conversation and or discovery call. And I'd love to know more about what is causing those beliefs for her.
And obviously, there's something going on.
Right.
We would assume, or else you wouldn't have asked that question.
Right. So I would love for Kelsey, please, contact me and
Mhm.
I'd love to have a further conversation with you.
Isn't it interesting that when you do take that step back, if you can do it and look at a relationship over a period of time, things that you learn about yourself. Even you could be still in the relationship or you could be out of the relationship, but when you look back and it's like, well, I tolerated that then, or things changed and I continue to tolerate it. I'm here, but I'm not I'm not accepting that anymore. I'm like, just that's not right. That's not in a line with what's inside of me. And whenever that happens, could be your life purpose. You're in a job and it doesn't feel right within, and you right away, it's like, so I'll go to work, but I'm not fulfilled. I'm not feeling it because it's not your core value. What and it could be anything. It could be affection in a relationship. It could be your values on money. It may have changed. But it's interesting when you look back at it and you just, kind of step out of yourself so you can see it looking in what you realize after time.
And then, kind of, I think one of the things that is really important is how do people manage differences of opinion, conflict, and even arguments, because they can all be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
um
Mm-hmm.
how they're managed and can actually help grow the relationship.
Yep.
And is it always going to be comfortable? No. But does it mean that a relationship can grow and remain healthy? I believe that's those are some of the keys where, it's like, okay, how are we going to do this?
Yeah. But I guess it gets back to the communication thing, and I've heard, I don't know, and tell me your thoughts on this. Every 5 years, we reevaluate our lives. We look at it, we think about it. Maybe we don't act on it. Maybe we don't consciously, especially if you're deep into a relationship and you're just going through the motions of every day, you might not look at it. But it's every 5 years. And then you've heard the 7-year itch, right?
yeah, I've
Okay.
heard that.
The reason that it's 7 years is you evaluate your relationship after 5 years, and then it takes you 2 years to act. And then that's where the 7 years come in. Because a lot of times, house, kids, everything, family intertwined. It's not like you're going to say after, 5 years or the 10, 5, 10, 15, You're not going to look at it and say, yeah, I'm just pulling plug today. Maybe there's a reason to, then okay. But you evaluate, and that's where the 2 years come in, and that's where the 7-year itch is. And if I look back at relationships, I feel it's true. Or something happened in a 7-year period. Something happened.
I really don't have any research about that.
Now you have homework though.
I
And the other one is,
you give me homework every week.
I gave you homework. And 9 years is another one. 9 years. And I'm not sure what the difference between the two is, but and I've always heard the 5 plus the 2, 7. The 9 was recent, so I can't recall exactly what the 9 is, but it's a reevaluation of your life.
And what if we are always sort of reevaluating?
Shouldn't we though?
I don't like to use the word should.
Well,
you know me the word should.
We don't want to should on ourselves. But...
We don't want to should on ourselves. But on the other hand, if we are in, that evaluation state, and I guess, I'm plugging a little bit, but coaching can be a way of staying in that state of, because evaluation to me is because you want to grow, you want to figure out, am I in a place of purpose? Am I experiencing discomfort somewhere? So it could be anything.
Sure.
So if there's a constant evaluation, then things are constantly addressed. And it's almost like paying your bills on time. It's like, okay, I know what I owe. I know, and that's maybe a horrible correlation or a horrible.
No, but I get it. I totally understand it. And life coaching can give you the tools and the introspect and a different perspective to look at those things, to see if you're fulfilled and then how to deal with them. Now, we're not saying that you get a life coach, look at your relationship and say, well, that's it. I'm moving on. That's not what we're saying. It's having more of a different view of it, so you're more comfortable with it. And I think there's a lot of benefit in that, because even talking with friends, let's face it, we have friends that we bitch to all the time, and they just tell you what you want to hear. And that's great.
Yeah. And sometimes, within coaching, well, first of all, as a coach, I'm not somebody who would give advice. It's more asking the questions. And then it's interesting because clients start to catch themselves. Oh, wait, I've had this, this thought or this belief that hasn't served me. And because of that, and they catch it sooner. But they catch it sooner working with another person than if they're just doing it on their own.
Yeah.
It's easy because it's really easy to fall back into old patterns. And, and then it's, it can even be, what am I tolerating about, what do I not want to tolerate about myself anymore?
Point. That's a whole different territory, and it's not to say that we want to push it off onto somebody else. It's their fault. It's your fault. It's your fault. But yeah. And these words I hate saying, but we're out of time.
We're out of time.
Yeah. It's just like flies by.
Definitely look that stuff up. And
yeah. And I'd be curious to see what you find, because I've heard that a lot of this for years. I'd be wondering, what's on your mind with that. But yeah, anybody looking to even reevaluate or just evaluate your life, your relationships, purposefulpathwayslifecoaching.com is the website. And she's got the insight to kind of figure it all out. And I wish I did a long time ago. I didn't even know what a life coach was back then, and wish I did, because it would have, yeah, we knew that we're therapists, but it's a different journey with a therapist.
Yeah, it's different. We've talked about that a couple of weeks ago, I think.
For sure. Yeah.
But yeah, Kelsey, please reach out, and I'd like to delve a little deeper, and and of course we're out of time.
Yeah, we're out of time. Always great talking with you. And it's so funny. Like we always say, what do you want to talk about? I don't know. And we just go, and then we go. Like, how does that time go like that? That seems like 2 minutes.
It does. And yeah. I think that other people appreciate just the natural flow, because it's like, so sometimes I don't want to say sometimes if I'm listening to something like a really, really heavily scripted podcast, I will sometimes get a little bit like, okay.
I stop listening, even though I'm listening. I stop listening because it's just so planned out. And, after like 2 minutes, it gets uncomfortable. And there's a place for planned spontaneity.
Yes.
And that's, a lot of TV shows do that. It looks like it's, like Saturday Night Live.
Right.
It's, it's all planned out. Sometimes there's a little improv in there.
And then, but, yeah. And then, it can also go the other way where, there's nothing.
Right.
And people are just like, they're talking about whatever.
Right.
And it doesn't even have anything. It's not really even addressing a topic.
Right. So, exactly. Well, I'm going to read the script here. It says we got to go.
All right.
There's no script. Yeah.
See you next time.
Thank you. Purposeful Pathways, lifecoaching.com. Thanks, Allison. And we'll talk soon. Okay.
Bye, Steve.
Bye. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.